All right, welcome everybody to another edition of the Dad at Arms channel. I'm your host, Dad at Arms. This will go by Colt. And with me today, I have some really fun guests. This is Pedro Cardoso. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
and and Dooz from Powerhouse Studios. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing awesome. Um, Tell me a little bit about yourselves, what you do at Powerhouse, and in relation to Masters of the Universe before we get into the weeds.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. Okay, so I have worked on both seasons of Masters. In season one, I worked on post-production. I was the character supervisor for that. And then for season two, I worked in pre-production and also in post-production for the show. And I have had so much fun. Pedro, over to you.
Yeah, same as Dooz. I worked on the show for both seasons. And just I guess to clarify, when we say seasons, we're counting Revolution as season two, and the first season would have been Revelations.
Yeah, so I broke it up.
So
yeah, the part one and part two.
Yeah, exactly. So I was a background artist on season one, and then I was I moved into a lead role for post production as well. And on season two, I was background art supervisor.
Okay.
So I was managing the background team and working on all the paintings and doing some 3D work as well for the show.
Awesome. Well, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So what is your has Masters of the Universe always kind of been something that you've known of, been a fan of, or was this work through Powerhouse kind of your first introduction to it? I guess what's your personal history with Masters?
I am sad to say that I was just a few years too young to grow up with it originally. So I was born in '88, so I didn't quite catch it on the first wave. But I am fairly positive if I would have been around at that era, I would have liked it because I always liked the boyish TV shows the most. And I love fantasy. Like, young me was always drawing the dragons and the monsters and the wizards and the things like that. So to get to draw all of those things this season, dream come true.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, kind of like Dooz. I didn't really catch the first wave, as it were, of Masters, but because I'm a kid of the '90s, so I caught like maybe the second waves. And I remember, of course, He-Man is so iconic.
Mm-hmm.
Just from being a boy playing with toys, you remember the He-Man toy and the He-Man franchise and Skeletor and all the characters and stuff. And maybe dressed up as a He-Man once or twice for Carnival or something like that. Yeah, but I wasn't necessarily a big fan of the show. It was more like, yeah, I know what it is. It's an iconic franchise. But then I think as the shows developed and as I worked for it, I feel like I kind of grew very fondly of it. And yeah. I really, really appreciate it now.
Awesome.
I went back after I found out we were going to be on the show, and so I went back and started finding and digging up episodes online so I could kind of understand. Went back and watched it, and I'm like, no wonder. This is lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so sweet. I wish that I could have watched it through the lens of a child as well as an adult. So I'm kind of sad in that way. But happy that I got to revisit it, that I got to be exposed to it at some point in life, and it's been just wonderful.
Awesome. And it's never too late to jump into the fan. Being a fan of Masters of the Universe, and I think that's one of my favorite things is seeing new fans come to this brand, this property, because I get to see people fall in love with it like I did. I was born in '82, so I was just a little kid when it first started, and I remember watching the cartoon all the time, and I had toys that I'd get for Christmas and things like that. My first introduction to it was the Golden books. they had the Golden Books Masters of the Universe little storybooks, and I would go to a local craft store with my mom, and they had a kids section, and she'd always let me pick out one book every time we'd go visit, and it was always a He-Man book, and just because the covers of those, drawn by Earl Norem and stuff, and just fantastic. They just sucked me right into it. So that was my first introduction, even before I was aware of the cartoon and stuff. And then obviously I fell in love with all that stuff, and it's been a part of my life ever since. So
yeah, those books and the comic books that they would do too, like all of that artwork would come up over and over again when we were doing research for the show. That stuff is very inspirational. It's really, really gorgeous artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just has such a way of just it transports you into that world, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But yeah, so well, I'm glad you got to work on something like this. I think that's so cool. It's something that, I'm jealous. I mean, it's a job for you guys, and this is your careers and stuff like that. But I just think it's so cool that there's people out there that on their resume it says they worked on a Masters of the Universe show. I think that's super cool. So now that you've entrenched yourselves in the brand, do you have any favorite characters or anything? Who are your favorite characters?
That's a hard question. I think Skeletor is my favorite person. But as far as like character go, yeah, like their personality and their whole thing, Skeletor's got to be my favorite. But on season 2, I really liked Hordak because I just like a good, strong, badass villain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but Skeletor's he's just so goofy, and
he's so fun.
Always on the same quest. Yeah, he's so fun.
Yeah, the pure sheer ham of it all.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love drawing his eye sockets when they pop open.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of abusive power where I would a scene with Skeletor, put me down. Let me do that one. And then in season 2, I'm like, oh, Hordak? Click, click, click. I want to draw Hordak.
Oh, that's fun. I have this little it's this little figure. I have a He-Man and a Skeletor from Revelation, but they've got the big heads, kind of like they're articulated. Mm-hmm. But Skeletor, his jaw opens and closes, and his eyebrows articulate, and so you can put him in these really goofy poses. It's really
really cool.
Yeah,
it's cute.
Yeah, they're really fun. So yeah, I guess as far as characters go, my favorite, I always loved He-Man. I think most boys my age were drawn to that character, especially with the Prince Adam aspect. Something I talk about a lot is we like to see characters that we can relate to. And I think that's what Masters of the Universe does so well, especially with that older cartoon, is it really had a way of speaking to children and teaching them these complex lessons in a very fun and a very, wholesome and pure-hearted way. And just this idea that there's this character of Adam who can become the most powerful man in the universe, but he has to pretend that he's not that person. He has to pretend that he's afraid of things. And I think that speaks to a lot of people because, we struggle to find ourselves, and we struggle to convince people that we care about of who we really are, in a way. And so maybe not in general, maybe I'm speaking too generally, but that was my feelings and why I was drawn to that character. And then of course my second favorite character is Teela, because I'm pretty sure she was my first crush. And my favorite thing to talk about is when I met my wife, she was the same type of woman who Teela is. She was strong and independent and opinionated and, stubborn. And so when I met my wife, it was easy to fall in love with her. And one thing that I get to brag about is that we had He-Man and Teela action figures on our wedding cake when we got married.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I love it so much. And it's like my biggest brag. So
Yeah.
I'll have to send you some photos of it because I love it.
I love that.
So, but yeah, I love He-Man and Teela, and so getting to see their stories finally unfold and them coming together, and it's my favorite thing about the series, even more than like the magic and He-Man fighting Skeletor and all that stuff. I love that love story for Adam and Teela, and so we finally got to see it and unfold on screen. It was just such a good moment. So again, thank you for making a 41-year-old fan very, very happy.
Awesome.
I'm pretty sure I cried a little bit when the moment happened. So, and
we had so much fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I remember everybody talking about those scenes and coming up with that, shots for that story and everything. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, kind of walk me through your jobs. Tell me, let's get into the details of what you both do, if you don't mind, because I don't know how animation works or anything like that. So I love hearing from the people who do know. So go ahead and jump right in. And
tell us the magic, Pedro. Explain.
Okay,
I'm always amazed by what they do.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a wonderful background art team at Powerhouse, and so the way that I explain backgrounds to people who are not like that into animation or into the animation process is that everything that doesn't move is part of the background. So anything that is not a character or a prop that characters are interacting with is background art, and so it's everything that is behind the characters or sometimes in front, but it's a painting treatment, so it looks a little bit different from the characters. We usually paint it a little bit more realistically, and for the style of the show, we're trying to mimic that 80s and the 80s fantasy and box art painting style that they had on the toys and everything. But yeah, so we come in usually in the very beginning of production, once they have the scripts settled down, and would start designing and thinking about the locations that the show is going to go through. So we'll design each location separately. We have a little team of a few artists, like maybe like 4 or 5, and then each kind of gets a location for themselves. And then we do a bunch of drawings, sometimes black and white drawings or just line drawings. We'll do 3D models to kind of flesh out the space, and then that kind of starts to collaborate with the storyboard team, because then they'll take those 3D models and start storyboarding and doing their animations on top of those, starting to move the camera around, stuff like that. But then what we do is then we just kind of keep fleshing out the background. So we'll do line drawings on top of those 3D models. We'll start adding textures and lighting, and then we'll start doing our painting passes and all this sort of stuff until it looks like the finished paintings you see on the show.
That's amazing. How long does that process take?
It can vary a little bit, but I would say it's a week for like a location to be designed, and then like somewhere between 2 to 3 days for each painting to be fleshed out. But those are, like the bigger kind of set piece paintings,
Mm-hmm.
when you're going to go to Eternia and they cut to the establishing shot of Eternia, that's like one of our set pieces. So that's one of those paintings that we'll do very early on in production to establish the style of the show. And something like that will take like 2 to 3 days to be painted. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
When you're designing these locations and stuff, obviously you have reference points to use. How much of it is referencing things that came before, and how much of it is kind of new interpretations, or does it just kind of change accordingly based on what you're working on?
I think it changes depending on what has a toy and what doesn't. Because if there was a toy established, then the direction is usually like, let's just really focus and be inspired by what the toy kind of establishes. But a lot of times it can be tricky to work with a toy design, because those toys are a little old and sometimes they don't have a lot of detail. They don't have a lot of information. And we also need to make sense of, Castle Grayskull that you have back there, for example. Like, what is it gonna look like on the interior? How are we gonna fit the interior with the exterior that we have, and kind of like creative problems like that we have to solve. And that would change things from the toy, and that's where we get a little bit more freedom to kind of push the proportions of things, or add new materials, or kind of design things around the toy a little bit. And then we get like new locations, like Gwildor's hut, and the biome or the landscape that he lives in. That was all just kind of made up from us, and I think the direction there was maybe to look at the old movie where they had Gwildor. And so that was. It depends a lot on, if we have something, if we have a toy, then it's go for the toy look and get that essence. If it's something that is not very well established, then we have a little more freedom.
Awesome. I like how when these backgrounds would appear in the show. One thing that I'm thinking of in particular is in Revelation, where we see Eva Lynn after she's become sorceress, where she has the bat headdress, and it shows her in Castle Grayskull in like the sorceress's bedroom, and you see the rug on the floor, and it's the same design as like the trap door on the old, on the Castle Grayskull playset.
Yeah.
And so I think always, being able to see those things and recognize those design elements and stuff, and kind of see it in a living, kind of breathing way, that's jumping out of the toy and into this space where characters exist and stuff. I just think that's fantastic. And, I had a similar thought when we see like the throne room of, the royal palace in Eternos, and just all the design elements and stuff that go into that. I think that's so cool to see what you guys have done with that.
Those were two sets that I personally designed, so I really
awesome.
appreciate that.
Awesome.
I remember
I love that.
looking at the Castle Grayskull and looking inside Castle Grayskull to try and find like patterns or textures, or just things that we could use. And the trapdoor was one for the rug. There's the banners too. So a lot of times there's like things that are in the toy that don't have a place in the background. Just because they're a functionality of the toy. They're like a button or a gear, or like hinges or stuff like that we try to add to the backgrounds to give it that flavor of, this is an 80s toy. Sometimes things won't make sense architecturally, but they kind of have to be there to add the taste of Masters of the Universe to it.
Awesome. Well, I will say that scene in particular, in the Grayskull rug, it never dawned on me before, but when I saw it in Revelation, I was like, that would be a really cool rug to have for myself. And so I went online and tracked one down. And so over here in front of my gaming setup, I have
really cool.
A rug that looks like the trapdoor from Castle Grayskull. And I have you to thank for that inspiration. So that's cool. Really cool.
Yeah. Hopefully no one fell through it yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I had to dig a hole down there. That'd be kind of fun. No, and I like that how you explain it with, using the toys as inspiration. And one thing that stood out to me in Revolution, in the latest season, is when He-Man is in his final form and he jumps up on top of the castle and he sticks his sword into the pawn crown piece atop the skull, and it acts as a key lock, to kind of disperse the power from the sword out to cure everybody. And that's something that I always thought was cool, because on the old play set, there's the key lock that opens the jaw bridge, and that was a big part of those golden books. Is there was two halves of the sword, and when they combined, they would unlock the secrets of Castle Grayskull, and it was a literal key lock. And so seeing that in action in the show reminded me of those old storybooks that I used to love reading, and reminded me of the toys, obviously, because it felt like a very, this is a play element in animation, and I just think that's really cool that you guys focus that much on it and put that kind of care into it, because that's always fun to see.
Yeah, you just nailed the direction that I got for that that don't.
Awesome.
Yeah, when we wanted He-Man to somehow bring back Castle Grayskull, and how he was going to use the sword, and then somebody had the idea for the lock, and then we used that. It's the exact lock you're talking about that opens the drawbridge, but we just took that and put it right above the castle instead.
Very cool. Very cool. I love it. Is there anything in particular that was your favorite thing to work on?
Oh man, there's a few things that I really enjoy doing. This last season, so for Revolution, everything Hordak related was a blast to work on, because it added. We were trying to add a sci-fi aspect, right? Because the whole show is about science or technology versus magic. So on season 1, it was very much about the magic part of Master Universe. So then when we introduced Hordak, we introduced the technology part. So it was a lot of fun to play with, technology and sci-fi aspects, and everything relating to Hordak was stylistically very fulfilling to work on. And as far as Eternia goes, also, I think in general, I don't know. I just love Castle Grayskull so much. It's very iconic. Just every time that I get to work on it, I feel very, very happy. And yeah, I'm very familiar with it now too, which is really fun.
And we see Castle Grayskull go through some changes in the new season. It becomes that techno horde castle with the bat wings. And how fun was that to design that new look for Castle Grayskull?
Yeah, it was a blast. That one, we just wanted it to be whatever. It's pretty much like whatever Hordak touches becomes an image of himself. That was kind of the idea behind it. So we really wanted to become like a vampire's fortress. We're really making a nod to bats, because that's another thing that we always try to do with Motu, is that we try to bring in like animal features or monster features to things to make it feel, I think anachronistic is the word, but we try to make things look like they're monsters or they're animals or something. Like there's always an animal theme to the characters or to the backgrounds. So
that's cool.
We're trying to play with that bat motif for Hordak with the castle. And then the direction that I personally, this is kind of coming in a previous question you had, like a little bit of a leeway that I wanted to push for the interior of the castle when it's transformed, is that I wanted it to look a little bit like a gaming computer, like
nice.
Motherboard merges with it. And so we added like these huge fans and neon lights and just like the general computer
so
parts.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that moment where she plugs in and she kind of floats up in the air and her wings are spread out. It's such and then the camera like zooms through the drawbridge back outside. Such a fantastic shot.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, a shot like that is very collaborative. It takes effort from the animators who had to make the animation of her moving up, and transforming. And she's not only moving up, and it's not a very simple animation. It's actually a very complex one, because she's breaking apart and cables are shooting out of her and stuff. So, I have the animators doing the animation, and then we have to sync that up with the 3D model for the camera move. Then background artist does some paintings to kind of cover up the 3D a little bit so that it doesn't look just like straight out of a 3D render. There's compositing and visual effects that goes on top, and everything just comes together. And of course, the score is beautiful, so it just really brings it up a notch.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Dooz, I feel like we've kind of been ignoring you a little bit.
No worries.
So tell me about the specifics of your job and your work and what you do.
Okay, so what the character department does is kind of the mirror image of what the background department does. We will design generally most things that move will come through here, and that includes like characters and props, animals, people, main characters, background characters, crowds. Oh my gosh, the crowds. Yeah, so we do that for pre-production, and sometimes we'll do layouts, things like that. We'll do call outs of specific moments, like say when motherboard plugs in, we might design a shot like that. If somebody's getting hit or something, specific moments that need a little extra love, things like that we'll do. And then in post-production, when the animation comes back to us, we'll often either plus up or sometimes completely redo things in-house. Again, especially the moments that have a little extra razzle-dazzle, those big money shots. Close-ups, far away, things are looking a little off, or maybe somebody's not looking in the right direction. We will just make sure that everything looks good before we send it off to the compositors to jazz up even more. So yeah, that's what we do. We do pre and post.
Okay. Well, very cool. So, same question that I asked Pedro. Is there a favorite thing that you got to work on with either of the seasons? And you can list as many as you like, because I love hearing about it.
I might have to, because I probably can't choose.
It's such a hard question, yeah.
I know. So season 1, I really loved drawing the Savage He-Man. Like a lot of the close-up shots. Again, I put my name on because I'm like click, click, click. So I wanted to draw him all rugged out and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And then in post, I would, like, a lot of the faces where he's just losing his mind. That was me, because I took a lot of stuff.
Awesome.
There's something very cathartic about that. And then I also love drawing Skelegod. I did a lot of Skelegod, especially in the last episodes. It's hard to work on Skeletor because his jaw, usually when a character talks, it's like just their mouth. But with Skeletor, you get to draw every single tooth.
Yep.
Every single tooth. And then in certain mouth positions, his jaw changes angles. So then you can't just make it move up and down. You have to actually draw it shifting in perspective.
Yeah.
Which is a challenge. And Cringer. I love drawing Cringer.
We all love Cringer.
Yeah. I don't know if you can't see him, but I have he's up there.
There he is.
There he is. He's
Love
up
it.
there. He's chilling out there with Hellboy. Okay, and then season 2, various forms of Tila.
Yes.
The snake sorceress.
She's gorgeous, by the way.
Oh, yay! I'm so happy.
And the snake armor is my all-time favorite version of Tila. So
I'm so happy to hear that.
I was very excited to see her finally.
I was really concerned because when I first saw the original toy, I'm like, oh, that's very top heavy. How are we going to make this headpiece work on screen so it doesn't look like she's going to topple over?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh man, I was really struggling with it. And then I'm like, snakes. What do snakes do? They shed their skin.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can put the skirt on, and then she looks like a snake, and then it can whip around and look all elegant, and it's a little saucy because it's see-through.
Mm-hmm. And she's very sensual and
yeah, and I gave her fingernail polish.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, that was such a
I can't wait for the toy. Have you seen the toy reveal?
I saw it in the background of a video. I'm gonna grab it.
Oh yeah.
I'm so excited. And then the lion armor one, the crystal.
Yes.
Crystal one.
That was okay. I want to say I expected the snake armor. I loved her sorcerer design. Her sorceress designer standard from the end of Revelation. Obviously, the snake design blew me out of the water. But when I saw that final transformation of her and He-Man together, and she takes on the lion aspect of the central tower of Preternia and everything, and oh my gosh, she, you can see her thighs. She's got the high cut in her thigh skirt. And it's the barbaric, battle furs that I love to see on these toys. And
I went ham with it. I'm like, I'm not just gonna do the furry underoos thing. I'm gonna make this really, really long and
yeah. And her hair was just amazing. Yeah.
I so badly wanted to do big magical hair after season 1, having her hair short. I'm like, I want floaty. It's the hair that I would want. 6 feet of it, and it sparkles. Who doesn't want that?
It's so cool. And I love how it's animated when, when it's in the transformation scene, right? And they kind of have that iridescent, I don't know what you call it, color scheme or color pattern, where they're sparkly and they're just, they're humanoid shapes without flesh tones and stuff like that. But then when her hair erupts,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like it's just igniting on fire. And it was fantastic. So
I couldn't believe it when I saw that shot. It was so beautifully done. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there she is. She's moving. Like, I'm so used to just seeing her in model sheet form, like revision number 40. And then it's like, and then you see it move and you're like, oh, she's amazing.
it's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah,
I'm so happy I get to talk to you about her because I loved her. I love her.
Yeah. Oh, and Granomir.
Granomir.
Boy, Granomir.
Yeah.
He was
like
amazing.
Middle school me was the kid that sat in the back and drew dragons. So to be able to work on a dragon, and see it on screen.
That's so cool. My youngest son is a big dragon nerd, and so he got very excited by Granomir when we watched it. So well done. I felt like I was interrupting you. Continue. Tell me more of your favorites.
And I only did on Hordak. I only did like tie downs and his back view, and not Eddie did all the fun stuff on Hordak. But in post production, I got to draw a lot of him, and I love his gnarly face so much.
Oh, it's so cool that
sneers.
Yeah.
The disdainful sneer, and then his voice acting just killed it.
Who doesn't love Keith David?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so good.
It's fantastic.
I mean, honestly, if you set me loose for an hour, I could probably talk about every character that I love drawing.
I've got time.
Actually, no, that was really hard to draw because every time he would talk, it would wiggle. And so if we had to fix it, his mouth, we had to fix the mustache too.
I gotcha.
It was twice as much work. Oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah, the various Tilas this season. Cringer, always fun. Snout Spout. I had
Snout Spout was fun. That was fun.
Snout Spout's design was so cool too.
Oh my gosh.
It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre fun.
It was one of the hardest ones I ever had because I saw the original toy and I'm like, how am I going to make this work on screen? Because again, the toy is also very top heavy. Just like he's got this big metal head. I'm like, how do I make him not look like a candy apple on the screen? And I'm like, fire. Maybe he's like fire and rescue, like a big mech fireman that kicks in your door and saves it. Which is why. And he had an axe originally, and I'm like, fire and rescue axe. And big tanks on the back. I'm like, that's where the water comes from. I mean, not that it would hold that much, but it doesn't have to.
It's a world of magic. It makes sense.
It's a world of magic. We'll go with that. There's like maybe 2 gallons of water in that whole super, super compressed water, let's just say.
Yes. Oh, that's so cool. When you're designing characters, let's talk. Maybe to make it easy, let's talk about Tila's designs. When you're going through these designs, how many iterations did you go through before they landed on the final?
The more important the main character is, the more you can bet that things are going to be really, really scrutinized and gone through with the comb. So, yes, the answer is yes.
Yes. Awesome. Remind me when we go off air, because I will have a follow-up question that I don't know if you can answer while we're recording, but I'll ask you later. So specifically about that. So the backgrounds and the characters in the old cartoon, they had the I'm trying to think of what they're called. They had the animation cells where it was the static background and then the cell that was an overlay. do you do anything like that, or is it completely different now? I know nothing about animation, so I'm sorry if this is a weird question.
So it's similar to that, but it is fully digital.
Okay.
But we are basically still painting on cells on transparent backgrounds, and then we overlay that with the background art. That's a lot of what compositing does.
Okay.
In charge of lighting, and they do a lot of effects work, and they make sure that the character art is working with the background art. So it's very similar to that, but it is fully digital for ease of use for editing things. Like if we have to change something, we don't have to throw the cell away and start over. We can just like Control Z, which God bless all the people who worked in the days before Control Z in animation. Just prayer for them. I don't know how they did it.
Okay. Well, that's helpful because I didn't have a good sense of what the process was. So thank you. And I think it's good for people to understand just how much effort and work goes into these kind of animation projects. When I was talking with Adam and Patrick, we were kind of talking about the basic time frame that it takes to put a show like this together, and just it just sounds like it's just years of work. So my hat is off to you, and I just think that's incredible that all goes into that.
I almost worried because like at this point I've been off it for so long. I'm like, oh gosh, am I going to forget what I did? Sometimes, your show will come out and you're like, oh yeah, I did some stuff on there. What did I do? Did I do that? Is that character mine? It's like you completely forgot.
Yeah.
At least I do. I
can imagine. Well, yeah. I mean, you're working on this, and then you move on to other projects, and your schedule and your plate gets full with other things, and so. I mean, I think that's understandable too.
Yeah.
So. And sometimes the lines get crossed with what's yours and what's something that's been worked on with multiple people. Like I'll have done, say, a version of a concept, and then certain parts will not make the cut, and then little tidbits here and there will make the cut. There's like a couple little sections of Skeletech from my early iterations that made it, and that was it. And then other characters I did made it through with almost no touches from other people. So it's pretty rare to have something that's, you can say, I designed this. Like almost everything had another set of hands, whether it's like with edits or cleaning up or adding shadows or something. So it's kind of hard to say like, oh, I did this myself, because it's a medium. It's kind of sticky to be able to say that at all, because it is, as they say, a very collaborative medium. So there was it was all hands on deck usually at moments, and you're passing the ball around, not to use a sports analogy. I don't know anything about sports, but yeah, you are constantly like passing back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So looking beyond Revolution, and I know nothing has been announced for a season 3 or anything like that, and at least publicly, and nobody on the inside will give me any good information. So I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you if there's going to be a season 3, but if you get to work on more Masters of the Universe, what kind of things would you hope to see and moving forward? Maybe I'll help you out a little bit. I love the Snake Men. The Snake Men are amazing. Okay. And we've been introduced to, snake magic, obviously, with the staff of Ka and Snake Tila. So I think a lot of fans are kind of hoping to see the Snake Men at some point if things go forward. So that's one of my general hopes is to get to see the cool Snake Men characters and stuff like that.
That would be rad. I love to draw the beasties. That's another thing I like to draw. Beastman.
Beastman.
There you go.
Forever in our hearts. Beastman.
We have
he didn't come back. That was
No, we have an ongoing joke that he's still falling.
sad. It is supposed to be a bottomless chasm.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Hordex is supposed to be afraid of that because I don't remember exactly, what branch of the universe was, but isn't he supposed to be like afraid of coming back to Eternia because he was cast into the same pit that Beastman went down?
I think so. I think that has something to do with it. And Tila fell into it once too. Tila fell into that chasm before. And it was a really cool moment in the original series where she's in there and she in the process of falling down there, she hurts her ankle, and so she can't climb out. And so He-Man has to go down in there to get her, but he also has to transform. And when he transforms, she's in the chasm where all the power is shooting up to transform He-Man. And it's just such a cool scene because she's just surrounded by all this magical energy and stuff and has no idea what's going on. And up above somewhere, He-Man's transforming to come get her, and it's a cool scene.
Yeah. Well, we can do that on our show because we established the lightning bolt comes from the sky.
Right, so. Right.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Obviously, I'm very hopeful to see more, and it's been really fun getting to see it back on TV screens. I feel like it almost seems like there's more now than there was when I was a kid, when it was in its heyday. It feels like there's this huge renaissance of Masters of the Universe, and it's so exciting, and it's an excuse to buy more toys. So, and speaking on toys, do you have a favorite toy?
I'm looking over here because I have a Moss Man that I really like.
That one was so cool.
Yeah, he does look really cool. And he has you can switch his hands. He has vines shooting out, and he has his regular hands.
Yeah, so cool. I love the toys.
I would probably say one of the two that I have. Well, I've got three, but I've got the Cringer and the Skelegon. I like both of those. But if we get more sorceress forms of Tila,
yeah, those would be cool.
I want Snake Tila. I definitely want the Lion Tila.
Yes.
And
oh my gosh.
I keep bugging Rob David over at Mattel that I told him that I won't be happy until I get a 2-pack of He-Man and Tila in a package together, like with a nice window box front on it, but in their final designs. So the Lion Sorceress Tila and the He-Man with his cape and longer hair. That would just be amazing. And have them holding hands. That would be wonderful. Let them hold hands in the package.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I have any more questions, other than, just basic nerding out with you guys. I said it off air, but I want to make sure I say it on air, again, just thank you. I know there was a lot of, especially with Revelation back when part 1 aired, I know there was a lot of negativity on the internet from people who aren't the greatest kind of people. But I want you to know that, coming from someone who obviously, I'm in love with this franchise, and it's been a part of my life. Just, you killed it, you nailed it. And thank you for your part in that. And I guess I'm kind of stumbling on my words here, but I just want you to know that it's appreciated and that fans are happy. And there's a lot of fans like me in the fan spaces and on the forums and the message boards and stuff like that you made us happy. And I think it's important for you to hear that. It's easy to hear the negativity in the world. So I want to make sure I'm speaking positively. So thank you to the both of you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you liked it.
Yeah, that really warms our hearts. It's really good to get, because we're so busy working, and artists like to stay busy and kind of keep their heads down and be in their work. So it feels really good to just be able to talk to you and hear from you. Just how much you appreciate the show. Yeah, and I was gonna say a lot of the research that we do, I think, kind of lends itself to the fandom because there's so much
Mhm.
material that's available online because of wikis and Reddit pages and just blogs and things that people keep or people post, the old artwork or they post about the toy and things like that. So a lot
Yeah.
of the fandom really comes through the show and as far as reference and inspiration goes for us. So
Very
it comes
cool.
back around, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. Before we go, I want to make sure I give you both an opportunity to kind of tell people where they can find you if if you want people to find you online on social media and stuff like that. Where can people find you?
Yeah. I'm mostly on Instagram at Pedro, like you're seeing on the screen, H92.
Okay.
And I'm on Twitter as well. I think it's PH and then Cardoso, as you're seeing on the screen. But if you find one, you'll find the other probably. So, yeah, that's usually
Cool.
where I post stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
My handle is usually just Dooz Draws.
Okay.
I am not on the socials that much, but I am a little bit. So you can find me on Facebook, and I have a very old Instagram.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining me today and taking time out of your schedule and stuff. I love getting to talk to people like you and just getting to geek out about Masters of the Universe. So thank you for the time, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And for everybody out there who is watching, you can follow me at this channel. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as well. Please, as the kids say, like, share, and subscribe. I guess. So yeah. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.